Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Withem's Founder Series. My name is David Hansel, Manager, CFO, and Accounting Advisory. As part of Withem's commitment to startups, we are very lucky to have Cassie Tate, founder of WayForward, based here in Philadelphia. Hi, Cassie. We're very excited to learn more about your journey and the lessons you've learned along the way. Let's start from the beginning. Could you tell us about your background and how your passion for business was developed?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, David. My passion for business starts really early. My parents actually owned a small business in Los Angeles when I was growing up. And so I got to hear their discussions of their business decisions at the dinner table every night. And then afterwards, we would go and watch The Profit on CNBC or Shark Tank afterwards. So I grew up in a business family from a really young age.
That's interesting, especially how that early exposure to the business decisions and the business process can really shape your passion. So, with that, how did that help transition you into the startup world during your time at Temple University?
Yeah, so during my freshman year at Temple, I started to intern for an education tech startup, and I loved it there. Honestly, the education world, but also the startup world, especially the entrepreneurial mindset that I got to use there, the collaboration that I got to have, the impact that I got to have at a young age on something that was really different and changing people's lives was a great experience. And so I got to major from that into entrepreneurship and innovation. And so the combination of kind of the hands-on experience with the academic experience really set my entrepreneurial mindset from that age.
Yeah, absolutely. Being around that environment, it's very contagious, kind of their skill sets and their passion, and just being around it, I feel like it just elevates everything you do. So, after graduation, you worked in the human capital space. Could you tell us a little more about your journey into that field?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been passionate about business, but I've also been passionate about psychology and understanding how people work. And so I was fortunate to kind of stumble into a field that combined both of those after undergrad. So I got to go into human capital, first at a medium-sized pharmaceutical company and then at NBC Universal. So there at both places, I got to co-create leadership and organization development departments. And so I got really hands-on experiences, understanding from an executive perspective what was happening in these companies, the issues they were facing with their talent, and I got to actually help to solve that. So I got to see the impact that had, and I realized this space was something I really wanted to go into. And so I decided from there to go into human capital consulting, and I decided to get my MBA from USC and focus in on leadership and organization development to do that.
That's very great experience, especially working for these global companies. They have challenges and kind of its own unique ecosystem where there's goals and challenges. So it's very cool that you're able to see kind of companies everywhere from kind of that startup stage all to the global, such as NBC Universal. So with that, your transition into human capital consulting is very interesting. How did you leverage your MBA and transition into consulting work?
Yeah, it was a great time. I actually, after my MBA, went to KPMG's People Strategy practice, which is a center of excellence within their mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures practice. So there I got to work with a lot of different companies and solve a wide variety of complex human capital challenges, mostly within a deal space. So that added a time pressure element to it. There was a lot of moving parts. So I got to use my understanding of the business area from my MBA, from my undergrad, and then also use the human capital aspect to see the impact that it got to have on these organizations.
Very interesting. No, it's definitely very impressive how you owned your experience in the people strategy space throughout your time in consulting. With that, what led you to start your own company, Way Forward?
Yeah, so while I was at KPMG, I got to see the impact that it had on these organizations. And I got to work with a large variety of organizations across the board, work on a lot of complex issues. And I saw that the work that we were doing, things we were doing really had an impact on the bottom line. And I thought back to my experience with startups and how much I loved it. And I thought, obviously this would be really helpful in the startup space, but also the startup space, people are really passionate about what they're doing. They care about their people. They really want to take care of their people. And I haven't seen that need be met from a people strategy perspective in some of the org design and more strategic pieces of talent planning. And so I really wanted to help fill that need. And also I really liked the idea that within the startup community, people are passionate, they care, and they're also more open to innovative solutions. So it was a space that I was really excited to get to be part of and also to hope to impact in some way that's not getting impacted right now.
Absolutely, yeah, especially working with some of these early stage startups, you get an opportunity where you can really work with the founders and the leaders, help them understand their culture, help them build it out, work with them to help develop their goal and vision, as well give them guidance and advice based upon your experience. So it's definitely a great combination of experience, and very excited to see how it shakes out. So I got to know. We're both from Philly, the Philly startup community. What makes that so unique?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. The Philadelphia community, especially within the startup space, immediately was just warm and welcoming, and it feels like a family to me. So, for me, what I think is really unique about Philly is that people want to understand who you are, what you're doing, and how they can help you in that and how it might fit into what they're doing. And I think just the level of collaboration and the mindset helps the individual businesses in Philly as well as the community as a whole.
No, absolutely. I think everything you said there, you got the universities, you got the hospitals, you got great startups, you got PACT, you got the Philly Startup League. There's a great culture being built. And I like the fact that we have kind of startups and providers and local organizations all working together because we get lost between New York and Boston and LA and all the money that's flying around there. And people seem to forget there's a lot of good stuff going on in Philly. So 100% agreed, a really unique culture and very exciting to see its growth.
Me too.
So pivoting back a little bit to the human capital, what are some areas that startups and venture capital groups can better understand as it relates to human capital?
Absolutely. So, number one, I think when you're talent planning, you need to think in terms of capabilities. So, ask yourself, what does your corporation or company need to do and be great at in order to win at its specific strategy? And so, when you think of a capability mindset, next, when you're filling those capabilities, you need to think about filling them in ways that may be non traditional. So, don't necessarily look for somebody who has a specific background in the exact role or industry you're looking for. Be more open to where could they actually develop those skill sets. So maybe another industry has recently solved a challenge that you're looking forward to that challenge. And so looking for people with diverse backgrounds that you may not think of right now. And then the third is to prioritize passion from the beginning. So, skill sets and capabilities are really important. But at the end of the day, when you're building a company from the ground up, the people who are passionate about what you're doing and their role in it are going to be the most important players in your organization. They're going to be your number one cheerleaders. They're going to be your best salespeople, and they're going to find better people for, to continue working in your organization. They're going to make it a good place to work for everybody. So really prioritize passion in those first few hires.
No, I think that is really sound insight. As capital is moving through and decision making is happening, you're trying to get your product to go live. These are just challenges and goals that you need time and you need focus. So those points you made there, they're absolutely perfect. So, can I ask you one more question? Based upon your time, experience, and your journey, what are some of the key lessons that you've learned that apply both to individuals and companies?
Yeah, absolutely. I've learned a lot so far from my experience. And I think the number one thing is for both companies and people is just the power of human connection. The collaboration and connection with people has been the number one driver of my experience, my growth in my career, my growth as an entrepreneur and as a human. And so I really do believe that our strengths are better together and that we can do so much more in collaboration with each other than we can do alone. So number two, I would say, is really leaning into an entrepreneurial mindset. So if you think of something, whether it's a company, whether it's a new process in your role, whatever that is, if you think of something that hasn't been thought of before, go after it and make it your own. Today's reality is just a foundation for the future. And so when we really drive the entrepreneurial mindset, we can innovate and create things that we may not think possible today. And then the last is really, especially today, agility is critical. You have to be able to evolve and be paying attention to the newest technologies and methods. And in order to do that, you have to be open to feedback and you have to be willing to pivot and change and grow. And today's society, things are changing so quickly, and the ability to stay ahead and thrive in this world is really hinged on ability to be agile today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cassie, these insights are so invaluable and they're applicable to startups and companies of all sizes. We do very much appreciate you taking the time today. With that, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find out more about Way Forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone can feel free to find me on LinkedIn at Cassie Tate, as well as wayforwardstrategy.com, where you can look at our services and some of where our insights come from, look at the neuroscience behind it, as well as the people strategy. So we're really hoping to have an impact on the startup community in Philly.
Absolutely. Very exciting. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And we look forward to watching all the great things.
Thank you so much, David. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. If you liked it and want to hear more, you can follow us and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Founded in Tech.